Tonight on Not News, I did something I've never done before. I bought a newspaper. 4 of them. Why? Google is removing Canadian news content from their search engines, and I am not using Bing. But don't worry, I found a hack. All you have to do is type .com or .ca after your search, and it takes you straight to the page. That's right, Google. Some of us were born before you, and we didn't need you then, and we don't need you now. I grew up manually typing website addresses like http://geo-cities.com/how-to-use-the-internet.html. I should make sure that doesn't lead anywhere weird. I know at least one of you is going to type it in. Oh, brought us to Yahoo. This all goes back to Bill C-18, which we've already covered. The Canadian government forcing online distributors of Canadian news content to pay a portion of their ad revenue, which they are outright refusing to do. So I figured, I'll pay. I'll go buy a newspaper. I went to Sheffield's, I went to Mayfield's, I went to all the fields. I gotta say, it was not as convenient as I had hoped. I ended up going to 10 different newsstands in search of local Vancouver newspapers and a Toronto Star. Don't even try to get a Toronto Star in Vancouver. I was laughed at, scoffed at, and even ignored at some of these newsstands for even asking. I mean, we have come a long way from paper, come and get your paper. I'm afraid the younger generations are gonna think that's a Fallout 3 reference. I even tried the Fairmont Vancouver, because hotels used to give you one when you had breakfast. But alas, even that has stopped. I must say, the gentleman at the front desk was world class, beyond helpful, and so knowledgeable I felt like I could ask him anything and he would have the answer. He was saved by my Canadian politeness when a line began to form behind me. Otherwise, I would have been there all day figuring out the secrets of the universe. Why did I go to so many places? Because they were all sold out. In fact, I wasn't even convinced any of them were selling the newspapers they advertised. Finally, the gracious purveyor at the Waterfront Station newsstand got all my business and was kind enough to answer a question. How many newspapers do you carry a day? 7. Yeah, 7. 7 copies of the Vancouver Sun a day at the busiest transit station in Vancouver. I got the last copy. I single-handedly boosted his newspaper sales by 14%. This might explain why news stations want to share the ad revenue. I think the paper cost me about $3. He sells 7. Let's say the other 10 places sold 7. That's about $210 in sales. How much can they possibly be making after printing, distribution, the stands cut? I'm guessing not much. But they are making ad revenue, because these papers are covered in ads. I'm starting to wonder if it's more about getting the ads in front of us than it is the news. But if circulation is down, who wants to run an ad? In fact, circulation is so low, many newspapers are ending their print edition. Just in time for their digital-only editions to be scrubbed from search engines and social media. Maybe I should collect a newspaper like Pete Davidson did VHSs and sell them in 20 years. Who needs CPP when you've got newspaper? I read the Globe and Mail, the National Post, Province, and the Vancouver Sun. Cover to cover, sort of. Across these papers, 17 articles were duplicated in 2 papers and 1 ran in all 3. The Vancouver Sun had a special edition insert of the National Post, which had all the same articles I just read. I thought, wow, these journalists must be having such a great day being featured in all these newspapers. Or they're all owned by the same company. Yup. Postmedia. Postmedia owns the National Post, Province, the Vancouver Sun, and well, here's a list. Growing up, my sisters and I had a monopoly on the Chronicle Journal. If you got a copy of the Chronicle Journal in our postal code, we delivered it. This is nothing compared to Postmedia. They deserve an episode of their own. Since 2010, they've acquired 44 newspapers in Canada. They own over 120 brands. If you've read a newspaper in Canada, odds are you read the same newspaper as everybody else, just with a different name. What about the Globe and Mail and all those other ones that aren't owned by Postmedia? Let me tell you, the articles are the same. Sure, the journalists are different, but the facts are the same. And the titles look like someone took an eraser to them and just replaced a few words. Difference is how the facts are presented. The federal government funds healthcare in BC, a much needed band-aid. Federal government funds healthcare in BC. You will die before seeing a doctor. Are facts still facts when framed within an opinion? It reminds me of university when you'd submit the same paper to a different professor. Just change the title, rearrange some paragraphs, just bring in the margins. Is that plagiarism? Am I gonna lose my degree? Oh, but I was doing so much with it. Careful, I bought that frame at the dollar store. Duplicate articles weren't limited to the headline stories. Arts, entertainment, sports. I don't need to read about the Blue Jays blowing it in 4 different newspapers. I already watched. The really fun thing about reading the newspaper, though, is it's like a choose-your-own-adventure book. Remember those? To continue down your path, go to A6. Oh, we're all gonna die. Those are still selling a lot, right? I'm afraid newspapers are probably dying with their readership. Sorry. And for the rest of us online, well, We can't get it unless you put .com or .ca. Who knows how many newspapers and news stations are going to be able to survive under shrinking revenue, restraints to access. And with that, we'd like to announce Not News is now accepting donations. Any donation over $100 and you will receive this commemorative Not News mug. What the What happened to this thing? What? The letters melted when you put coffee? So the letters melt when you put a hot liquid in a mug? Oh, hey, it's good now. Oh, no, it's on my fingers. Let's try to do our part to keep the news alive. Just type .ca. Just try it. And if you want to know what's not news, I'll be right here. You know, this bill might actually be good for me.